The Queen's Exile. The shimmering halls of the Araxes Palace were alive with tension, their crystalline walls reflecting the muted light of a dying partnership. Queen Valara stood at the center of the High Council chamber, her golden skin now dimmed, her violet eyes locked on the figure who had once vowed to stand by her side for eternity. King Arkel sat rigidly on his obsidian throne, his expression carved from the same unyielding stone, his words sharper than the blade of a warrior. "The council has spoken." The High Elder's voice echoed with finality. "Queen Valara's failure to secure the future of our bloodline renders her unfit to rule. By decree, the union is hereby dissolved." Valara's breath caught, but she refused to bow to the weight of the words. The laws were clear, the judgment inevitable. Still, hearing it pronounced with such coldness felt like the slicing of her soul. Arkel's eyes bore into her, but they held none of the warmth she once knew. "Do you accept the council's ruling?" His tone was devoid of emotion, yet there was a flicker of something deeper, guilt, perhaps. Valara straightened, her voice steady and resolute. "I accept the judgment, my king. But know this, in casting me aside, you discard more than just a queen. You discard loyalty, strength, and the very essence of what made us whole." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, but Arkel did not respond. His silence was her answer. She turned and walked away from the council chamber, her royal robes billowing behind her like the remnants of a storm. A silent departure. In her private quarters, Valara stripped herself of the symbols of her status. The crown, the jeweled clasps, the ceremonial garb, all reminders of a life now beyond her reach. She donned a simple cloak and gathered a single case. The room felt cavernous, a hollow echo of what it once was. Her closest aide, Sereth, entered, her face etched with sorrow. "My queen." "Not anymore, Sereth," Valara interrupted softly. "I am no longer bound to that title. You will always be my queen." Sereth insisted, tears glistening in her eyes. "The ship is ready, but I beg you to reconsider. Perhaps there is a way to." "There is nothing left for me here," Valara said, her voice resolute but tinged with melancholy. "Arkel has chosen his path, and now I must choose mine. Promise me you will remain loyal to what is just, not merely to what is easy." Sereth nodded reluctantly, her heart heavy. Valara embraced her briefly, whispering a quiet farewell before stepping out into the dark corridors one final time. A world forgotten in the stars. Valara's ship was a modest vessel, its cloaking systems active as it slipped through the starred expanse. Her destination was a place long whispered of in Archean myths. Earth. A world considered primitive by her people, yet full of untamed beauty and a spirit of resilience that intrigued her. During the weeks-long journey, she immersed herself in the archives, learning Earth's languages, customs, and history. The more she read, the more she felt a strange pull toward this unfamiliar planet. Its people, though flawed, seemed capable of remarkable feats of compassion and ingenuity. When the time came to enter Earth's atmosphere, her heart raced. The ship descended under the cover of night, landing in a secluded forest on the outskirts of a sprawling human settlement called New York City. As the engines powered down, Valara felt the enormity of her decision. She was truly alone now, a queen without a kingdom, a traveler in a foreign land. First steps in a new world. Using her species' unique ability to camouflage, Valara adjusted her skin's hue to blend with human appearance. Her metallic sheen faded into a warm, bronze tone, her violet eyes softened to a deep brown. Draped in simple human clothing she had replicated from her database, she stepped into the cool night air. The city glowed in the distance, a labyrinth of lights and movement. Valara walked toward it, her senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of sounds, the smells of unfamiliar flora, and the pulse of life that seemed to vibrate in the air itself. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. It soaked through her cloak, and she shivered, a sensation entirely foreign to her. She ducked into a small establishment with a glowing sign that read Rick's Diner. Inside, The warmth enveloped her. The hum of human voices mingled with the clinking of dishes and the soft melody of music playing from an old jukebox. She moved hesitantly to the counter, where a man with disheveled dark hair and a kind smile greeted her. "Rough night?" he asked, wiping his hands on a towel. "You could say that," Valera replied cautiously, her accent subtle but distinct. "I'm Rick," he said, extending a hand. "You look like you could use something hot. Coffee?" Valera hesitated but nodded. "Yes, thank you." As Rick poured the steaming liquid into a cup and set it before her, she realized this was her first true interaction with a human. She studied him carefully, noting the lines of care on his face, the easy warmth in his eyes. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, leaning casually against the counter. Valera smiled faintly. "No, I've traveled a long way." "Well, welcome to the neighborhood," Rick said with a grin. "Around here, everyone's got a story. Maybe someday you'll share yours." Valera lifted the cup to her lips, the rich aroma filling her senses. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this strange new world held the promise of a future she had thought lost forever. A stranger among humans. The streets of Brooklyn came alive under the glow of street lamps as Queen Valera, cloaked in the guise of a human, stepped into the unknown. The air was electric, buzzing with a mix of human energy and chaos she had never encountered. For someone who had spent centuries surrounded by the calculated serenity of the Archon royal court, Earth felt like a living, breathing organism, wild and untamed. Valera wandered the sidewalks, her eyes darting from one unfamiliar sight to another. Neon signs hummed above shops. The smell of roasted chestnuts mingled with the acrid tang of vehicle exhaust, and the rhythmic clatter of trains echoed overhead. It was a symphony of disorder, yet there was a strange harmony to it all. She was pulled from her thoughts by a distant sound, a heated argument spilling out of a nearby alley. Curious, she approached cautiously, her Archon instincts primed for danger. The encounter in the alley. Two figures stood in the dim light of the alley. One was a towering man in a tattered jacket, his voice loud and threatening. The other was a teenager clutching a worn backpack, his posture tense but defiant. "You think you can just walk through here without paying up?" the man snarled, shoving the boy against the brick wall. Valera's chest tightened. Violence was not uncommon among her own kind, but it was always veiled behind protocol and ritual. Here, it was raw and unfiltered. She couldn't ignore it. "Enough," she said firmly, stepping into the light. The man turned, his eyes narrowing at the sight of her. "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" Valera held her ground, her voice steady. "Someone who won't stand by while you harm a child." He laughed, a cruel sound. "This ain't your business, lady. Walk away." But Valera didn't move. Instead, she subtly activated the neural dampening field embedded in her biology, a defensive ability of the Archons. The man's expression faltered as confusion clouded his mind. He stumbled backward, clutching his head. "What the?" he muttered before retreating into the shadows. The boy stared at her, wide-eyed. How did you do that?" Valera offered a reassuring smile, though inside she felt the strain of using her ability. "Let's just say he had a change of heart. Are you all right?" The boy nodded hesitantly. "Yeah, thanks. I've never seen someone stand up to him like that." Valera reached out, her tone softening. "What's your name?" "Alex," he replied, gripping the straps of his backpack. "Who are you?" She hesitated, then said simply, "Valera. Just Valera." An unexpected guide. Alex proved to be a surprising source of insight into Earth's culture. He led Valera through the streets, pointing out landmarks, explaining customs, and even teaching her the basics of Earth's currency system. For someone so young, he had a sharp wit and a depth of knowledge that intrigued her. "You talk funny," Alex said as they walked. Valera smiled. "I'm not from here." "No kidding." he said with a grin. "You're, like, super polite. Nobody talks like that." They stopped at a food cart, and Alex insisted on buying her a hot dog. She studied the strange food with skepticism, but took a bite. The explosion of flavors unlike anything she had experienced. "Good, right?" Alex asked, clearly pleased with her reaction. "It's unique," Valera said diplomatically, earning a laugh from him. The library discovery. As the night deepened, Alex led Valera to a quiet refuge. The public library. The towering shelves filled with books mesmerized her. Back on Oraxis, knowledge was stored in crystalline archives, sterile and devoid of tactile connection. Here, the act of holding a book, feeling its weight, and turning its pages felt intimate, almost sacred. Valera ran her fingers along the spines of books, her curiosity ignited. "So much knowledge, just sitting here for anyone to access," she murmured. "Yeah, libraries are cool like that," Alex said, plopping into a chair. "You can learn about anything here." Valera selected a book titled The Human Spirit, Stories of Resilience and Triumph, and began to read. The tales within moved her deeply, stories of humans overcoming impossible odds, fighting for justice, and finding hope in the face of despair. For all their flaws, humans possessed a strength that resonated with her. It was a stark contrast to the rigid structure of the Archan society, where progress was often stifled by tradition. A warning from the past. As Valera immersed herself in Earth's stories, she failed to notice the faint hum emanating from a device hidden within her cloak. It was a locator beacon, a relic of her royal status, reactivating after weeks of dormancy. Far across the galaxy, aboard the Archan flagship Eclipse, a young officer monitored the signal with growing alarm. "Your Highness," he called, turning to the imposing figure on the command deck. King Arkel turned slowly, his crystalline armor glinting under the harsh light. "What is it?" "We've detected Queen Valera's signature. She's alive, and on a restricted world called Earth." Arkel's expression hardened. "Prepare the fleet. If she's on Earth, she's meddling in something she shouldn't. We cannot allow her to compromise our plans." A new purpose. Back on Earth, Valera closed the book, her mind brimming with newfound inspiration. Alex had fallen asleep in a nearby chair, his head resting on his backpack. For the first time since her exile, Valera felt a sense of purpose. She had come to Earth seeking refuge, but now she realized she might have found something greater. A chance to build a new life, free from the constraints of her past, and perhaps even to help these humans unlock their untapped potential. But as the faint hum of her dormant past stirred to life, she knew her journey was far from over. The Archons wouldn't let her go so easily. Shadows from the stars. Valera stood on the rooftop of a crumbling building, the city stretching out before her like a labyrinth of lights and movement. The hum of humanity was all around. Laughter, shouts, the distant wail of sirens. But her mind was elsewhere. The faint vibration in her cloak, which had gone unnoticed for hours, now resonated like a drumbeat in her chest. It was a locator signal, ancient and undeniable, summoning a reality she had hoped to escape. She clenched her fists, the cool night air doing little to calm the storm within. Valera had come to Earth for solace, a place where she could rediscover herself away from the suffocating expectations of the Archan court. But her past, it seemed, had found her. A sudden revelation. The signal wasn't just a call, it was a warning. Valera descended quickly, her steps urgent as she navigated the crowded streets. She needed information, and there was only one person she trusted to help her now. She arrived at Rick's diner just as the neon sign flickered to life. Inside, Rick was wiping down the counter, his easy smile fading as he saw her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, leaning on the counter. "Not a ghost," Valera replied, her voice tense, "but something close. I need your help." Rick set down the towel, his expression serious. "What's going on?" Valera hesitated. Revealing the truth could put Rick in danger, but withholding it might cost them both. She lowered her voice. "There's something coming, something dangerous. I may have led it here." Rick raised an eyebrow, but didn't laugh or dismiss her. "All right, start from the beginning." The fleet arrives. Far above the Earth's atmosphere, the Archon fleet appeared in a silent flash of light. The flagship, Eclipse, was a sleek, obsidian vessel bristling with weapons and shimmering with an impenetrable energy field. On its bridge, King Exile stood with an air of quiet authority, his crystalline armor gleaming under the control panel's light. "Status report," he commanded. "Her signal is strong, Your Highness," the officer replied. "She's located in a dense population center known as New York City." Exile's jaw tightened. "Deploy the recon drones. Do not engage the locals, yet. We'll retrieve the Queen quietly." Preparing for the worst. Back on Earth, Velara and Rick had retreated to a quiet corner of the diner. Velara unfolded a holographic map from a device embedded in her cloak, its light casting eerie shadows across the room. "That's not from around here," Rick observed, trying to keep his tone light despite the tension. "No, it's not," Velara admitted. "I'm not from around here either." Rick leaned back, his arms crossed. "I figured as much. The accent, the way you act. You're not just not local. You're not human, are you?" Velara met his gaze, her expression unflinching. "No, I'm not. I came here seeking refuge, but my people, my former people, don't let go easily." Rick processed this for a moment before nodding. "All right. What do we do about it?" The simplicity of his question stunned her. On Araxis, everything was debated endlessly, tangled in layers of protocol. Here, Rick's response was straightforward. "Assess the problem. Find a solution. We need to disable their signal tracking and cloak my location," Velara said. "If they find me, they won't stop at capturing me. They'll see this planet as a threat." Rick frowned. "You're saying your people would attack Earth? Why?" "Because they see every unknown as a threat," Velara said bitterly. "And humans, you're more extraordinary than you realize. Your adaptability, your resilience, it terrifies them." The first contact. As dawn broke over the city, the Archon recondromes descended, their sleek forms shimmering as they cloaked themselves against human detection. But Velara, tuned to their energy signatures, could feel their presence. "They're here," she said, her voice sharp. Rick grabbed a baseball bat from behind the counter. "What do we do?" "You're not seriously planning to fight them with that," Velara said, half amused despite the gravity of the situation. "Hey, it's better than nothing," Rick replied, his grin momentarily breaking the tension. Velara touched his arm, her expression softening. "You've already done more than I could ask. Let me handle this." But before she could move, the diner's windows rattled as a drone swept past, its cloaking field shimmering faintly. Velara's breath caught. They were scanning for her. "Change of plans," she said. "We fight." A moment of defiance. The first drone entered the diner, its sleek body hovering ominously. Velara stepped forward, activating her neural dampening field. The drone wavered but recalibrated quickly, its targeting systems locking onto her. "Stay back," she shouted to Rick, who reluctantly retreated behind the counter. The drone fired a bolt of energy, and Velara narrowly dodged, her movements swift and precise. She countered by deploying the small device from her cloak, sending an electromagnetic pulse rippling through the air. The drone sputtered, its systems failing as it crashed to the ground. Rick peeked out from behind the counter. That was intense. Velara didn't respond, her focus already on the next wave. "There will be more. We need to move." A glimmer of hope. As Velara and Rick flowed into the city's maze-like streets, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Determination fueled by trust. Rick's unwavering support reminded her of the strength she had read about in Earth's stories. They reached an abandoned subway station, where Velara began setting up a makeshift signal jammer using components from her device and materials Rick scavenged. "You're pretty good at this," he said, handing her a length of wire. "I've had centuries of practice," Velera replied with a faint smile. Rick shook his head. "Centuries? You don't look a day over 30. Flattery won't help," Velera said, though her smile lingered. As the jammer powered up, Velera's past and present collided in her mind. The Arkans were relentless. But here, on Earth, she had found something worth fighting for. A people who embodied the resilience and creativity her own kind had long since lost. Humanity's resolve. The abandoned subway station buzzed with a faint hum as Velera fine-tuned the makeshift signal jammer. Wires and circuit boards were scattered around her like the remnants of a battlefield. Rick stood nearby, his brows furrowed in concentration as he scanned the schematics she'd hastily drawn on the back of a pizza box. "So let me get this straight," Rick began, his voice tinged with disbelief. "We're jamming signals from an alien fleet using scrap parts and a blender motor." Velera's lips twitched into a small smile. "Your human ingenuity is astonishingly resourceful." Rick raised an eyebrow. "That's a nice way of saying primitive, isn't it?" She didn't answer directly, her attention focused on the device. Primitive or not, it might just save us. A growing alliance. Their plan needed more than just technology. The Archon fleet was vast, and even with her neural dampening field and cloaking tech, Velera knew they couldn't face it alone. She turned to Rick, her tone firm. "We need allies. People you trust." Rick leaned against the wall, thinking. "I got a guy. He's ex-military. Knows his way around a fight. But what?" Velera pressed. "He's not exactly the take-orders type. You'll have to convince him." Velera stepped forward, meeting his gaze. "You're right to be cautious. But if we don't act now, what's coming will destroy everything you've built here. Your people, your planet. Gone." Mitch stared at her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "All right. I'm in. But if you're lying." "I'm not," Velera said simply, rallying the unlikely. With Mitch's connections, their group grew. A hacker named Lena joined them, her dyed blue hair a wild contrast to her sharp focus. She was fascinated by Velera's tech and quickly began enhancing the signal jammer with Earth-made modifications. "You're telling me these aliens can traverse galaxies, but they still rely on radio-like signals?" Lena asked, her fingers flying across a keyboard. "Arrogance," Velera explained. "They never expected to encounter a species capable of defying them." "Good. Let's give them a surprise they won't forget," Lena said with a grin. By nightfall, the subway station was alive with activity. Maps were pinned to the walls, laptops hummed, and voices filled the air as plans took shape. For the first time, Velera felt something new. Hope. The first strike. As the Archon fleet's drones began sweeping deeper into the city, Velera and her team launched their counterattack. Using the signal jammer, they disrupted the drones' coordination, causing them to crash into buildings and streets. The team worked in perfect sync, Rick covering their tracks, Mitch handling makeshift defenses, and Lena directing their communications. "They'll adapt soon," Velera warned. "We need to stay ahead." "Let them try," Mitch growled, hoisting a makeshift electromagnetic launcher. "We're just getting started." The next wave of drones descended faster and more aggressively. Velera activated her neural dampening field once more, sending ripples of disorientation through the machines. But she could feel the strain. Her body wasn't meant to sustain such power for long. "You okay?" Rick shouted over the chaos. "I'm fine," Velera lied, her breath coming in shallow bursts. A message from the stars. Amid the battle, a new signal broke through the jammer's interference. Velera's device lit up, displaying a hologram of King Arkel's turned face. "Velera," he said, his voice cold. "This game ends now. Surrender, and I'll spare these primitives." Velera's jaw tightened. "Your threats mean nothing, Arkel. You've already abandoned mercy." Arkel's eyes narrowed. You underestimate me, as always. This planet will burn unless you comply. Rick stepped beside Velara, his presence steadying her. Let me guess. That's the X. She gave a humorless laugh. In a manner of speaking. Rick smirked at the hologram. Hey, buddy. Earth's not for sale. Try somewhere else. Arkel's image flickered before disappearing. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging over them. The turning point. Did you just taunt an alien king? Velara asked, incredulous. Rick shrugged. Seemed like the thing to do. Despite the tension, Velara felt a flicker of admiration for him. Humans were unlike any species she'd encountered. Unpredictable, stubborn, and fiercely protective of what they held dear. We have to take this fight to them, Velara said, her tone resolute. If we stay on the defensive, they'll overwhelm us. And how do we do that? Mitch asked. Velara's eyes gleamed with determination. We don't just fight them. We outsmart them. The group leaned in as Velara outlined a daring plan, one that would use Earth's chaotic ingenuity to exploit the Archon's greatest weakness, their unshakable belief in their superiority. Humanity strikes back. The Archon fleet hung in the upper atmosphere like silent predators, their sleek, obsidian ships casting shadows across the Earth below. On board the flagship Eclipse, King Arkel observed the planet through a holographic display, his crystalline armor glinting in the dim light. Humanity, he mused, the word foreign on his tongue. Primitive, chaotic, and yet persistent. Your Highness, an officer interrupted. Our drones have encountered significant resistance. The signal disruption has forced a recalibration of our systems. Arkel's expression darkened. Resistance from them. Increase the recon unit presence and locate the source of this interference. I want no more delays. But far below, amidst the labyrinthine streets of New York City, humanity was preparing its counterstrike. A risky plan. In the depths of the abandoned subway station, Velara stood before her ragtag group of allies. Maps and diagrams covered the walls, illuminated by the glow of makeshift monitors. The signal jammer hummed faintly, its upgraded systems keeping the Archon's drones at bay. For now, Velara's voice was steady as she addressed the group. The Archons have underestimated this planet and its people. Their arrogance blinds them to the possibility of failure. We'll use that against them. Rick crossed his arms, leaning against a pillar. So what's the play? We can't exactly take on an alien fleet with duct tape and determination. Velara allowed herself a small smile, not directly. But their fleet operates on a centralized neural network, a core hub that controls their ships, drones, and communication systems. If we disable it, their entire operation collapses. Lena, the group's tech wizard, raised an eyebrow. You're talking about hacking an alien fleet's brain. No pressure. You won't be doing it alone, Velara said. I'll guide you through their systems, but we'll need to get close, inside the fleet itself. Mitch let out a low whistle. You want us to board one of their ships. That's suicide. Velara's gaze swept over the group. It's dangerous, yes, but it's our best chance. The Archons won't expect a direct assault. They believe you're too disorganized, too primitive. Let's prove them wrong. The launch. The plan was bold, almost reckless. Using a cloaked transport scavenged from Velara's ship, the team would infiltrate the fleet under the cover of darkness. Mitch and Rick prepared weapons cobbled together from Earth's technology and Velara's alien tech, while Lena fine-tuned a portable hacking device designed to interface with the Archon network. As they loaded into the transport, Rick glanced at Velara. You ever done something like this before? She hesitated, then said, Not with stakes like these. Great, Rick muttered, strapping himself into his seat. First time for everything, right? The transport ascended silently, its cloaking field shimmering as it pierced the atmosphere. Below them, the lights of the city faded into darkness, replaced by the cold expanse of space. Boarding the beast. The Eclipse loomed ahead, its jagged silhouette a testament to the Archon's dominance. The transport docked seamlessly with a maintenance port, and the team disembarked into the shadowed corridors of the alien ship. Vilara led the way, her movements precise and deliberate. Stay close. The internal sensors are designed to detect Archon neural signatures, not human ones. As long as you're near me, we should remain undetected. Rick glanced around at the smooth obsidian walls. Comforting. They navigated the labyrinthine passageways, encountering only a few drones, which Vilara disabled with swift precision. Each step brought them closer to the core hub, a pulsating chamber of light and energy at the heart of the ship. The core hub. The core hub was breathtaking, a swirling nexus of light and crystalline structures suspended in midair. Lena's eyes widened as she took in the alien technology. This is beautiful and terrifying. Vilara stepped forward, placing a device against the nearest console. We don't have much time. Once I connect to the network, they'll know we're here. Lena powered up her hacking equipment, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I'll need a few minutes to break through their encryption. Cover me. As Mitch and Rick took defensive positions near the entrance, Vilara focused on the console, her neural interface connecting her directly to the Archon systems. She felt the familiar pull of the network, a web of information and energy that had once been second nature to her. They're coming, she said, her voice tight. Drones, and likely worse, holding the line. The first wave of drones appeared moments later, their sleek forms gliding into the chamber. Mitch's electromagnetic launcher fired, sending one crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. Rick followed suit, using a modified plasma weapon to disable another. We can't hold them forever, Mitch shouted, reloading. You don't have to, Lena called back. Just give me 60 seconds. Vilara's connection to the network deepened, her mind navigating the intricate pathways of the Archon system. It was like threading a needle through a storm, but she pushed forward, her determination unwavering. They're sending reinforcements, she warned, her voice strained. Stay sharp. The turning point. As more drones flooded the chamber, Vilara reached the core of the network. Her voice was a whisper, laced with both triumph and exhaustion. I'm in. Lena's screen lit up with data streams. We've got access. Initiating shutdown protocols now. Vilara's gaze turned distant, not from Earth. From those the Archons have oppressed, species scattered across the stars. If they see Earth standing up, they might find the courage to join us. Broadcasting the truth. The plan was ambitious. Using the remnants of Vilara's ship, the team would amplify a message across the galaxy, calling for unity against the Archons. But crafting the message was only half the battle. They needed to ensure it reached the right ears without alerting Arkel's fleet prematurely. Vilara stood before the camera, her expression resolute. Her words carried the weight of centuries of silence. To those who suffer under the Archon Empire, hear me, she began. I am Vilara, once a queen, now an exile. I've seen their tyranny firsthand, and I know their strength. But I've also seen something greater, something they fear. I've seen humanity. She paused, her voice softening. Earth is a small, unassuming planet, yet its people possess a resilience and creativity that defy reason. Together, they faced the Archons and won. But this is not just their fight. It's ours. If you've ever dreamed of freedom, of defiance, of a future unbound by fear, the time is now. The galaxy responds. The message was sent, rippling through the galaxy like a beacon in the dark. Across distant worlds, oppressed species paused to listen. On planets cloaked in shadow, whispers of rebellion grew louder. In a mining colony on the fringes of Archon space, a group of workers huddled around a hidden transmitter, their eyes wide with hope. On a lush, jungle-covered moon, a tribal leader clutched a ceremonial weapon, his expression fierce with newfound determination. Vilara's words carried more than a call to arms. They carried the promise of something the Archons had long sought to extinguish. Hope, the final warning. But the broadcast didn't go unnoticed. On board the Eclipse, Arkell watched the message with a simmering fury. "She's united them," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's turned our prey into a rebellion." The officer at his side hesitated. "Your orders, Your Highness." Arkell's gaze turned cold. "Prepare the annihilation cannon. If Velara values this planet so dearly, we'll ensure it's reduced to ashes." A race against time. Back on Earth, the team's relief was short-lived. Velara's scanners picked up a massive energy surge from the Eclipse. Her face paled. "They're activating the annihilation cannon," she said, her voice trembling. Rick frowned. "What's that?" Velara swallowed hard. "A weapon capable of eradicating an entire planet. We have hours at most." Mitch slammed his fist against the table. "Then we take it out. Whatever it takes." Velara nodded, her expression hardening. Whatever it takes. The team prepared for their most dangerous mission yet, a direct assault on the Archon flagship to disable the cannon before it could fire. Humanity's resolve would be tested like never before, and Velara knew the outcome would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of countless worlds.